Hey everyone, this is part 2 to the day I hired a Hitman story. If you haven't watched it, none of this will make sense to you and I highly recommend you go watch it. It's a long video, but it's worth the time, I promise. Click the annotation on screen or I'll have a link in the description. Let's begin. Hey everyone, I'm typing this out not for you guys, but mainly for me. I need to vent a bit and there's not many people I can talk to about this. The organization I'm working for has gone through YouTube numerous times and granted me authorization to write this. It seems not many authorities prowl through YouTube, and when they do, it's on their own time. A lot of shit is meant for this evil fucking world we live in. Anyways, let's just get to the story about how I was forced into this new line of work. How I was forced to become a hired gun. There are entities, both living and non-living, that have power and control like you couldn't even imagine. Even now, after seeing everything I've seen, it's hard for me to grasp. It's hard for me to believe. Those conspiracy theory nuts really aren't too far off, I've come to realize. Things are more connected behind the scenes than you could even imagine. These entities are completely invisible to the normal person until it lets its presence known to you, or you worm your way into its territory. Either of these scenarios end the same way. Once you stumble upon things of this magnitude, you end up joining, or you end up dead. Simple as that. These people are everywhere. Politicians, CEOs, lawyers, businessmen. They're able to see all, control anyone they want, and the scariest part, anything is obtainable. Anything. Again, I'm rambling. Let's pick up where I left off last time, shall we? I arrived at Sunset Park, about a 10-minute drive from downtown Vegas, around 6 p.m. I was walking around the area where these people wanted me to meet them until I saw a woman in a suit leaning against a tree. She had glasses on, but I could feel her staring at me, her gaze studying my movements and piercing my body like a knife. I walked up to her with my hands behind my back, my right hand inches away from my 9mm that was tucked in my pants under my shirt. As soon as I approached her, she said to me, "You have a 9mm tucked in your pants. I'd advise you not to pull it out." I was stunned. She was very good at picking up visual cues from people. She smiled as my facial expression showed that she was correct. I continued walking toward her, trying not to show my fear that this may well be the end for me. A light breeze blew through the park as I approached. I smiled a bit and said, "Well, aren't you an intuitive little thing? Tell me, what's stopping me from pulling out my gun and blowing your fucking brains out?" I tried sounding like I had some sort of control over the situation, but that was the furthest thing from the truth, and she knew it. "I have a sniper trained on you right now. If you attempt to make a move for your gun, you'll have your head blown clean off your body in less than half a second." I pulled my arms from behind my body and folded them in front of me. "Good. You seem to have some brains after all," she said, smirking a bit. That smug fucking face reassuring me that I was in no position to do anything, like a dog's owner smiling as it obeys a command. "Enough of the bullshit. You called me, I came, now what the fuck do you guys want?" She gave me a signal to follow her. In the distance I saw a park bench void of any human activity. I followed her while lagging a bit behind, attempting to survey the situation a bit. It was no use though. I was way out of my league, and that fact devastated me. I hate having no control of situations I'm involved in. We both sat down, facing each other on opposite sides of the bench. She took off her sunglasses. Beautiful, green eyes shone to my view, wore out from the troubles of her past and obstacles in her future. "We have a proposal for you, mister." I'll leave that out. "Call me Tyler," I said. "Okay, Tyler. Well, let me give you the short version. You poked the wrong bear, and furthermore, you killed one of our operatives. This wouldn't be a problem if you hadn't hired a fucking hit on yourself just for some amusement. Now we're down a man, and that's very serious in our line of work. We value each of our employees and the skill sets they possess. Now, I'll ask you one time, rather, I'll tell you one time. You will join our organization for a limited amount of time to replace the operator you disposed of. That, or sometime in the next 12 hours, you will be disposed of. I started laughing, that smile returning to my face that I hadn't seen since the last time I saw Mike. I wasn't laughing because something was funny. It was one of those laughs where something is seriously fucking wrong and there's no other emotion to convey how fucked up the situation is. She glared at me like this was some kind of fucking joke, like my life was just a joke. Well, I don't have much of a choice now, do I? Smart man, she said. Follow me, details will be discussed with you further. We walked towards the parking lot where I saw a black Bentley with dark-tinted windows pull up. It was brand new, not a scratch on it. Looking at the back of it, I see that it has CA exempt plates on it. As I got into the car, she put her hand up to her ear and said, "Stand down, he's cooperating, return to Point Delta at 22 hours. She started getting in while looking at me. "Could you please remove the 9mm from your pants, unchamber the round, and remove the magazine, please? You're not planning on taking it from me, are you?" "No, sir, it's just a precaution. I'll do it with mine if it'd make you feel better," she said. "I don't really care. It seems you have no intentions on killing me, as you could have done so already, and why would you scuff a pretty car like this with my brain matter?" She smirked again. "You seem to have good intuition. You should fit right in." And so we drove away and headed out of town towards the state line, not knowing what was ahead of me, but too tired and worn out to even care. We arrived in LA about 4 hours later. Having no idea where I was, it was too late to turn back now. Shit, it was too late to turn back the moment I arrived at the park earlier that day. About 20 minutes after we arrived in LA, the woman handed me a folded up bandana, speaking for the first time since I got in the car. "Put this on to cover your vision. We do this as a precaution to all new members to ensure the security of our black site." "Fine," I said, while tying it behind my head. "Am I ever going to know the location of this place?" "Yes, it's one of our central hubs that serves our needs for a lot of activities. Once we know you're dedicated and have the means to get a job done, we'll let you in on everything," she said. "By the way, what's with the CA exempt plates on this thing?" I said, while looking into total darkness as the blindfold covered my eyes. "I guess I can tell you now. We are part of a larger organization contracted by the government." My heart fucking dropped. What the fuck was this lady on about? The government contracts fucking Hitman agencies? I heard her chuckle under her breath. I guess my face gave away my emotional state again. "I see that you didn't expect that." "Yes, we are a sub-branch of a larger organization that does military work inside the states for certain organizations in Washington and for major corporations that need others to do the dirty work for them." "Like the CIA, FBI, and Department of Homeland Security?" I said, eagerly waiting for her answer. "Who contracts us is classified to you, and most of all, isn't your concern. Just know that we don't work directly for the government, we just receive funding and support from certain agencies." "What the fuck are you talking about? You're a goddamn Hitman agency. You can't possibly expect me to believe that you people are a paramilitary branch of the government," I said, my words coming out of my mouth faster than I could even think. She chuckled again. "It's more complicated than you can comprehend at this moment. Our Hitman division is only an extremely small branch of what we do as a whole. The hits people request are given to our operators as a side job for those who request them. It's a way for certain employees to earn a chunk of extra cash on the side while at the same time obtaining skills that improve our other operations." My face was probably priceless at that moment, just the pure disbelief at what I was hearing. If I hadn't heard it from a credible source, I would think I was talking to a nut job. "So, the government, or whoever the fuck pays the bills, allows you people to do this shit?" "It's not that they approve us to do it," she said. "It's more like they look the other way during these activities. After all, everything we do is looked down upon by most of the government. We scratch their back and they scratch ours. We provide a necessary service to them, and in return they ignore certain activities that give us extra funding as a group and for individual operators. As she ended her sentence, I heard the driver roll down his window. He said some obvious code words. Opening, I heard a voice say that sounded like it was coming from a speaker. I then heard a gate start to open, metal grinding as it slowly slid open. We're here. Keep your blindfold on until I direct you to take it off. We pulled forward, and then I heard a large garage door start to open. We pulled forward once again, and I heard it close behind me. Now things are going to get real. Now I get to see what my purpose will be and what my future will hold. I heard a door open and the woman get out of the car, followed by a man's voice saying, "So, this is him." "Yes, this is him," I heard her reply. A hand grabbed my arm and helped me out of the car. "You can take the blindfold off now, Tyler." Okay, thanks." I removed the bandana from my face, and what greeted me was a large warehouse, the likes of which I had never seen before. "Okay guys, that's about it for today. I'll continue tomorrow. I gotta get what I've written approved and then I'll upload it. Have a good day, everyone." I had arrived at the warehouse around 5 p.m. or so. As I got out of the car, I was greeted with an amazing sight. On the outside of this warehouse seemed old and rusted from years of being exposed to the elements. Inside, however, was incredibly high-tech, and I could tell not a penny was skimped on purchasing all the latest technology. I was given a quick tour while the lady who I'd talked to earlier was giving me the rundown. Her words were going in one ear and coming out the other as I tried to study every last detail of this massive place. We got to one room and my interest was piqued, as it looked like the goddamn launch room at NASA. A full HD projector was at the front of the room, and behind it were rows and rows of fancy computers streaming with codes and different applications. Each station had a man or a woman in a suit manning them. All of them had headsets on, seemingly finishing up the day's work. I started walking around as the lady who recruited me was in mid-sentence, cut off by my body language showing I was no longer interested in whatever the fuck she was talking about. I was walking around looking at the different monitors, looking at different applications on the various screens that made me think I was on a spaceship. I didn't understand any of it. That was until I got to one man's workstation. Let's call him Mark. Mark was on his headset clicking around on his multi-monitor setup, and I saw something while peeking behind his shoulders on the far left monitor. It was a picture of a little blonde girl. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. She had bright blue eyes. She looked a lot like my little sister. It made me smile a little bit. I had to wonder why this picture was on his screen, however. He was on an application. It wasn't like he was on his background or anything. I approached closer and tapped on his shoulder. He turned around and looked up at me, seemingly intrigued with what I was inquiring about. "Can I help you?" he asked with an upward inflection in his voice. "Yes, you can. I just started here. What's with the picture of the little girl?" I asked confidently, as if I had just been hired to run the fucking place. He gave a quick glance to the woman who brought me here, seeing if it was okay to talk to me. A quick nod of her head, and he continued. "It's a picture of a little girl that went missing 2 weeks ago. The mother thinks she knows who has her, but unfortunately the police were no help," he said. "So we have a search and rescue squad in this place or something?" I asked quickly. "No, sir. She had a hit put out on the guy. It's her old boss, a high-ranking banker who she used to work for, apparently a really sick fuck. She sent us the picture in hopes that we might run into her at his place once we take care of the guy." Something happened inside of me right then, a kind of feeling that I can only describe as fate screaming in my face. I was supposed to be here. I was supposed to talk to this man, and I was supposed to ask my next question. "Are there any other operators on this case already?" "No, sir," he said. It just came in earlier today. The woman had just gathered the funds in order for us to take care of it. I shot a quick glance over at my recruiter. For the story's sake, let's call her Anne. I'm taking this job as my first. Any objections? I said. As a matter of fact, nothing she could say could change my mind on this, even if I had to do it for free. She came over to the computer and asked me to give them a minute so they could talk. She came back up to me where I was waiting for a short time. This job isn't the type of thing I was going to assign to you at first. It's a hit. You know that, right? I'm well aware, I said, my tone hard as stone. Okay, as long as you know. By the way, how come you want this job so badly? I can see it in your eyes, like you knew that girl, she said. She reminds me of my little sister, I said, my eyes becoming heavy and glassy. And I can't stand motherfuckers that have anything to do with harming children. You only have one childhood, one time to be innocent and carefree. People who take that away from them deserve to die, slowly and painfully. I agree. What I'm getting at is even if this man had nothing to do with that little girl's disappearance, you still have to go through with it. You'll have to bear that on your shoulders, she said. She was surprisingly considerate. I realized that. Besides, he's a piece of shit banker. I want to hang his ass just for that. Probably a smug-ass motherfucker. By the way, if any high-up-the-ladder bankers are watching this, no offense. You just happen to really fuck our country and pretty much the world economy, and I don't like your kind. She smiled, and I went back over to the guy's station, ready for the details of the job and ready to pop my hit cherry. As I sat down in an empty chair a few feet away from the man, a printer went off in front of me. It started spitting out information, maps, and schedules of my target. I started smiling again, contemplating my future and the fact that maybe I'd actually want a permanent job here. My thoughts broke when Mark walked in front of me and grabbed the papers. He returned to his desk, labeling some of the files and ordering them to make it more accessible for me. He grabbed a manila folder in one of those drawers and put the stack of papers in it. Ah, how that folder brought back memories of how I got into this whole mess. He handed it to me with a serious face before saying, "Good luck." I stood up and followed Anna's cue to follow her. We exited the room and started walking down a very long, white hallway. She turned her head slightly to speak to me. "When do you want to do this job? Tomorrow would probably be best so you can get your head straight and focus." "Tonight," I shot out. "It's already 6:30, she said, stopping to see if I was serious. "You want to take care of this in the next few hours?" "Yes," I said. "I want this fucker now." I gave her a quick wink. My bloodlust for this man isn't going to quell until he's dead. She chuckled a bit. "Well, if you say so. It's not like it's your first time killing someone." Flashbacks hit me like a brick wall. Everything that had occurred in the past month or so came flooding into my brain like a summer monsoon. "You okay?" she asked, looking at me as I was lost in my own brain. "Yeah, I'm fine. You guys got an armory around this building?" She smiled, that grin coming back to her face that I'd seen earlier returned for a moment. "Yes, I'll show you the way." "After you," I retorted. I had brought none of my weapons with me since I was pretty much swept away to LA without a second's notice. We arrived at a steel door, a man behind a clear bulletproof glass window eyeing me as we approached. "Hey Stan, can you let us in?" she said. "Sure thing, Anne. Who's the new kid?" he asked hesitantly. "Mike's replacement," she said quickly. A weird mix of hatred and amazement washed over his face. I stared into his eyes, knowing this man had known Mike. "Sorry," I muttered softly. No words had to be exchanged, I already knew. "Were you friends?" I asked quietly. Drinking buddies, really. No one is friends around here. After all, we're not technically supposed to know each other. He went out after pounding half a bottle of Jack, just to let you know. His scowl turned into a slight smile. He would have wanted it that way, muttering to himself with a gleam of remembrance in his eyes. Suddenly, he pushed a button and the door slid quickly open, revealing a sight that struck me with pure awe. Rows and rows of guns, ammo, and high-tech special ops gear glimmering in the fluorescent lighting. "Take your pick," Anna said, smiling while looking at my face. I wish I could have seen my reaction, probably only rivaled by a little kid arriving with his parents for the first time to a candy store. I started walking down the aisles, admiring at the massive collection of big kid toys that were in stock. "We have a strict protocol when checking out guns and gadgets," she said. "I'll update you with everything after you get back from your job. For now, just pick out what you want and I'll handle the paperwork when you get back." "Sounds good to me," I said. A short summary of everything that I got. 2 handguns, 2 suppressors, night vision goggles, a box of ammo, 4 extra mags, a black backpack, bolt cutters, a burglary kit, rope, black gloves, a military-grade knife, a military-grade axe, 3 flash grenades, a medical kit with EPI pens, and a slick black suit that seemed to be tailored just for me. There were a few other odds and ends. I just don't feel like diving into my memory and trying to type all of the items out. I headed for the door again. "You're planning on having quite a night tonight, aren't you?" Anne said, quickly following behind me. "If I get my way, yes. Yes, I am." The last few words trailing off under my breath. A metal box opened up underneath the glass window on the inside of the armory. Inside of it was a clipboard with a handful of papers clamped down on it. "I'll take care of the boring stuff for now. Just sign here saying that you were the one who checked these items out." I signed quickly, eager to get this started. "Stan, I'll be bringing this back tomorrow morning when I get in. I gotta show the newbie the process," she said. Stan gave her a quick nod and the door opened up. I flew out of it before realizing I didn't have a car at the moment. I turned around to look at Anne, not noticing me while flipping through the paperwork attached to the clipboard. She looked up at me. "Yes?" "Car. I need a car," I said, stuttering a little bit. "Oh, yes, that had slipped my mind. Follow me again." She led me around a few corridors out into what seemed like the back of the warehouse. We went through a door into a large indoor garage filled with black cars and SUVs of all shapes and sizes. "Take your pick, except for the ones that are parked inside the red boxes. Those are on reserve by some of the top officials." I nodded quickly before running around the lot like a spoiled teenage girl getting her first car from mommy and daddy. I walked up to a set of black Bentleys, both black from head to toe, each with a set of government plates. I pointed. "This one," I said with a huge grin on my face. Anne laughed. "I see you have an eye for luxury, huh?" "I suppose," I responded. She went over to a large metal rack and looked up to the spot it was parked in. As I approached her, she threw me the keys. "Don't fucking scratch it," she barked at me as I ran back towards the car. Yeah, I hollered back from across the lot. I opened the trunk and put everything in there, ready to get the night started. As I headed for the garage door, I noticed Anne waving me to drive over to her. I rolled down the window and stopped right beside her. "Here's the address to where you're going to meet me when you're all done with this." She handed me a cell phone with an address written down in the default notes app. "We'll be meeting you here 20 minutes after you call us to retrieve the car and take you back here to return the gear." I gave her a quick nod. As I was about to roll the window back up, she put a hand on it. "I don't have to remind you that we won't think twice about putting you 6 feet under if you happen to ditch us. We normally need to build up trust with new operators before sending them out. However, I have an inclination that you won't be going anywhere," she said, looking me dead in the eyes. "I know," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." She took her hand off the windowsill and the garage door started to open. I sped off, a setting sun illuminating a pink and purple sky greeting me as day turned into night. I parked at a local pizza joint to look over the notes. I grabbed a slice to eat while reviewing everything in the file I was given. We'll call the guy Ralph. Ralph was a high-ranking banker at a major bank in downtown LA. The type of guy who spent 5 years getting promotion after promotion over guys that had been with the company for 20 years just because he was born into a family with connections. The type of rich douchebag that acquires a sick and twisted taste of erotic things as soon as he secures a position of wealth and power. The file said that he had made multiple advancements on the woman who took the hit on him, raping her one of the times. A complaint was filed on her behalf only to be told by the higher-ups to shut her fucking mouth if she wanted to keep a banking job anywhere around the entire West Coast. A man with connections indeed. It also said that he had mentioned something about tasting her little girl as well. This made me sick to my fucking stomach, yet I was smiling. Smiling because this rich fuckface had no idea what was coming to him. The worst night of his life would be his last as well. No kids, and a young 20-something-year-old girlfriend who was on a trip to Hawaii at the moment while he was finishing up work before taking a vacation himself. After I had read enough and had a game plan, I started taking off. I noticed I had only eaten half of my pizza. I was so excited and nervous that I didn't have much of an appetite. The sick things I was going to do to this perverted fuck. Just thinking about it makes me smile. One less sick fucking scumbag on the earth to hurt people. I was either going to make him suffer just a bit if I found the threats to the woman's daughter were empty scare tactics, or make him feel the pain of 1,000 medieval executions if I found the evidence to the contrary. I set out around 8 or 9 p.m. to get started. I passed by the mansion community that he lived in, guards checking in guests before they could enter. Security wasn't terrible, but it would be easier and more beneficial to sneak in. I found a spot about a quarter mile away and parked the car. I made my way, backpack in hand, to the back brick wall of the community. Shrouded by darkness, I hopped the wall and made my way to the man's house. The house was dark, vacant, it seemed, of any human activity. I used a bump key to get into the garage door that led from the side of the house. No cars were in there, neither was one in the front. I checked the door leading into the house. It was unlocked. I slid right in and gave myself a tour of the place while making myself at home. I tried to make it quick, making my way through while tipping over expensive shit like lamps and vases because why the fuck not? The guy is a disgusting prick. I entered one room and saw something that caught my interest. It had a few teddy bears, and upon closer look, the dresser drawers contained children's clothing. This guy didn't have any kids and was definitely not the type to have a niece or nephew stay the night. It was all just off. I could feel it. In the closet I found a tripod and an accompanying HD camera to go with it. It gave me the chills. Something was not right about this. Just as I closed the closet door, I heard a car pull up while headlights illuminated different sections of the house as he turned off the street and onto his driveway. It was go time. Time for this motherfucker to pay. I watched for a moment out of the second-story balcony as he stumbled out of his car to the front door. He was definitely drunk, which is good. Makes an easy target. I exited the bedroom and grabbed a signed baseball bat that was hanging in the hallway. I made my way down to the double front doors. Just as I hid out of sight in the corner, he put the keys in the lock. The door opened halfway and he staggered inside. He kicked the door shut behind him and started walking towards the stairs. "Hi, Ralph," I said quickly while raising the baseball bat to my side. His eyes widened like a deer in the headlights, realizing that someone was inside of his house who wasn't supposed to be there. Before he could do anything, I swung and knocked him straight on the side of his head, slightly above his temple. He hit the ground instantly, letting out a mix between a grunt and a whimper. He turned his head slightly, trying to get a good look at me. I pulled the rope out of my backpack and tied him up as tight as I could. Those knot tying lessons in Boy Scouts really came in handy now, didn't they? I got him into the guest bathroom downstairs and tied him up to the sink. He was fading in and out of consciousness, but he was starting to come to. I put a gag in his mouth and duct taped it shut, then searched his pockets. He was looking at me, his eyes not quite able to focus on me or what was going on as I leaned down and lifted up his chin. I looked him right in the eyes. "Hey Ralphie, buddy, how's it hanging?" The only thing I could hear was his muffled attempts to speak, probably to plead with me, telling me to take what I want and leave. "Don't worry, buddy. I'm not here to rob you. I'm here for something else," I said in a cheery, upbeat tone. "I'm here for her," as I pulled out a picture of the little girl. His eyes widened, showing the realization of understanding what was going on, knowing how fucked he actually was. More muffled pleads followed. "You don't happen to have her, do you, buddy?" A shake of the head told me no, but I knew he was full of fucking shit. After all, he's a goddamn executive banker. See, here's the thing. I don't really believe you. I have a few sources that say you do have her. His eyes dropped to the tile floor below, refusing to look at me. I picked his chin up again and stared into his eyes. "Look, man, I'm going to level with you. This will go a lot quicker for you and me if you just tell me where she is." I ripped the duct tape out of his mouth for a quick second. "I don't have her," he said, the desperation gushing from his mouth. I hit him straight in the nose a few times and heard a break, the crunch slightly muffled by his cries of pain. "See? I don't believe you. Like I said, I know you have her. I guess I'm going to have to go look for her. You sit tight." I chuckled a bit. "Oh, who am I kidding? You're not going anywhere." My happy-go-lucky smile slowly destroying his soul, the situation he was in seeping into him bit by bit. I put the duct tape on his mouth again and secured him even tighter to the sink, his hands and feet bound tightly as to make sure he couldn't escape. I searched all around the house to no avail. I even searched the attic and didn't find anything. I was checking out one of the upstairs rooms in the back of the house again and looked out into the backyard. I saw a huge shed that was more of a guest house than a shed sitting on the opposite side of the pool. I went downstairs and opened the bathroom door once more. "I'll be right back, buddy, just gotta go check something out," giving him a small wink as I shut the door again. I went out to the backyard and walked towards the shed. An ominous feeling hit me as I grabbed the door to open it. I opened the door to see a beautiful project car sitting inside. It was a '69 Mustang GT Cobra, I believe. There was only one floor with multiple rooms in it, one filled with gardening tools and supplies and the other filled with mechanic tools to work on the car. I searched around and found nothing. I was about to give up when I saw something that caught my eye on the floor. A cardboard mat laying under the car, presumably to keep oil stains from staining the pristine tiled floor. I removed it and got on my hands and knees to look under the car. Something caught my eye again, a little outline of what looked like an entrance to a lower level. I looked around for the keys to the car and found them sitting on a shelf next to a few other items. I got in the car and opened the garage opening, then I pulled forward to see what was underneath the car. As I got out and looked back into the garage, my suspicions were confirmed. It was a small trap-door-looking entrance to a lower level. The only thing identifying that it was there was a small outline where the door met the tile. I walked over and pried it open to find a staircase leading down to the dark pit below. I started walking down to see what this motherfucker was hiding down there. I hit the bottom of the stairs, feeling the whole time for the light switch or something. I finally found one, lighting up the whole room and lighting up the most disturbing scene I'd ever witnessed. It was something straight out of a fucking horror movie. It looked like a dungeon. A few cages along with both small and large shackles. It was inside those cages that shook me to my very fucking core. The little girl I had seen on the computer screen earlier that day was in one of them, her once bright blue eyes now dim with fear and anguish. As she saw me, she scooted herself up into the far corner of the small cage, afraid that I was someone else that was going to hurt her, or worse. As I stood there in utter shock, I saw movement to my left. I turned my head slightly to see another girl, a little brown-haired girl that looked like she was of Mexican or South American descent. My eyes started to water uncontrollably, and I'll admit it, I started crying. No human could do this, especially to little girls. Only fucking monster or a beast could do this. "Don't worry," I said, staring the blonde little girl in the eyes, talking with the quietest high-pitched voice I could muster up. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm going to get you out of here." I looked around to find the keys, and to no avail, they weren't down here. "Hold on, I'll be right back, okay?" She gave me a quick little nod, not knowing whether she could trust me or not. I ran back in the house to grab the bolt cutters in my backpack. I grabbed them and passed by the bathroom. I opened the door quickly to see Ralph struggling to get the rope untied, but failing miserably. His eyes widened wider than they had ever been, I'm sure, as he saw me there holding the bolt cutters. "Oh, don't worry, you motherfucker, I'm not using these on you quite yet." A quiet whimper escaped through the duct tape as I closed the door. I ran back to the shed, or garage, whatever the fuck it was, out back and flew down the stairs. As I entered the little girl's view, she crawled back into the corner of the cage, I'm assuming because she thought I was going to use the bolt cutters on her. That just wanted me to make that fucking monster inside die even slower. I approached the cage and started clipping the cage bars one by one. It looked like a makeshift enclosure, maybe 2 or 3 large dog kennels welded together. As soon as I could pry it open, I tossed the bolt cutters to the side and reached my hand in. "Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. You're safe now," I said, trying to smile and sound reassuring. She reluctantly grabbed my hand and I pulled her out, hugging her tightly, and I whispered in her ear that she is safe now, and that I was going to get her home to her parents. I set her down and knelt down to her level. "I'm going to get your little friend out now too, okay? So please, stay tight until I get her out." She gave me a little nod that she understood, and I started working on the other little girl's cage. I looked around at the other few cages, knowing at one point in time they were used for other little kids, maybe even in their teens, that were held here and never left. Alive, at least. I pried the other cage door open and grabbed the other girl's hand. I gave her a big hug and also told her everything was going to be okay. I set her down, and I'll never forget what happened next. They hugged each other, tight, not wanting to let go. To each other, they were probably the only thing that made the situation a little bit brighter, able to talk to one another in the pitch black and pass the time. I touched each one of them on the shoulder and told them I was going to get them home now. They each grabbed one of my hands and I led them out of that hellhole. As much as I wanted to tear that man inside to fucking pieces, I needed to get these little girls to safety first. I called up Anne and gave her the lowdown. I asked her if she could come pick up the girls and take them to the police station. I called the front gate and acted like Ralph, letting them know that I was expecting a visitor. 20 minutes later, Anne arrived. Before putting them in the car, I knelt down again and said, "Okay, you guys, this nice lady's name is Anne, and she's going to take you back to your parents. Now, be good and remember that the bad man that brought you here is gone forever. He can never get you again, okay? You guys are brave little girls. I want you to know that." They nodded, understanding that they were finally out of that place, their eyes finally gaining a bit of light knowing it was over. I gave them each a big hug and set them in the car. The little blonde mumbled something and I leaned in and asked her, "What was that? With all the strength she had in her, she whispered, "Thank you," into my ear. That was it. I started fucking bawling. "You're welcome, sweetie." The other little girl slid over and gave me another hug. I nodded and said, "Now, you be good." Another few little nods and I shut the door. I approached the driver's window. Anne was looking at me and said, "You did a good thing, but what about you-know-who? Is he still in there?" "Oh yeah, he's still in there, and he's about to be in fucking pieces in about 10 minutes. She nodded and said, "Okay, just call me when you're all finishing up and try not to leave too much of a mess for the cleaning crew, okay?" "Alright," I said. "Just get these little ones to the police station and say you found them wandering around or something. I'll figure it out. Have fun." I just nodded and waved bye to the girls as they drove away, seeing them wave back to me as they rounded the corner out of the neighborhood. I slowly walked back inside the house. It is now around 1 in the morning or so. Ralph was still trying to make it out of the ropes, his wrists bloodied with rope burn. I opened the door and grabbed my backpack that was laying on the ground. "Come on, motherfucker, we're going to have some fun now." I slammed his head against the sink and then untied the ropes that were restraining him to the sink. I led him outside the house and into the garage. A look of horror came over his face when he saw the trap door was open. "Yeah, you motherfucker, I found them. They're gone now, and you're not ever going to bother them again." I shoved him down the staircase. He tumbled down like a rag doll. He was defeated, and he knew it. He knew that's the last time he was ever going to see the outside again. I used some of the chains to chain him into the middle of the floor and went back up to close the hatch. More useless whimpering came out from where the duct tape was resting on his face. I ripped it off again and threw it to the side. I wanted to hear him scream and beg for mercy. The mercy he never even thought twice about giving the countless people he held down here. "Please, I was forced to do this. It wasn't my fault, I swear." He kept on and on. I grabbed his broken nose and twisted it sideways, the pain instantly transmitting to his brain. "We're just getting started, my friend. Karma's a bitch." He slumped down, looking like a sorry-ass sack of potatoes. "Please, God," he pleaded. "Please let me live. I don't want to die." I popped a cap to one of those EPI pins and jammed it into his leg. While injecting it into him, I looked him into his eyes once more and said, "I'm the only God with you right now." I'm warning you right now, shit is about to get real and very fucking graphic. I'm not sparing a single detail with what happened, what I did to that sick fuck. So if you're not very good with gore, I'd suggest turning back now. I took my 9mm and screwed a suppressor on it. I held up his right foot. Boom! 3 shots in between his ankle and his Achilles tendon. I did the same for his left foot. I then threaded my remaining rope through the holes and hung him from the piping on the ceiling. While he was hanging there upside down, I took the bolt cutters and severed the tendons on the back of his knees. His screams were music to my ears, each one retribution for a horrible act he had committed in this very room. I then pulled out my gun and popped 2 rounds into each one of his kneecaps. One of his Achilles snapped under the weight, and with it came a cry of pain. Before the other one snapped, I used the bolt cutters to cut it halfway through, letting the rest snap under his own weight. I stripped him down to his boxers, him laying in a mess of his own blood and sorrow on the concrete floor. I stomped his balls until one of them felt like it burst. I took my other EPI pen and injected it into him. I wanted him to suffer through this. I wanted him to feel every last fucking nerve being severed in his body. I picked the bolt cutters up and laid him on his back. I put them under his boxers and positioned his dick in between the edges. He looked down at what I was doing for a quick moment and yelped out a quick no before I sliced his dick off. Instantly, he started bleeding even more. Finally, I put my gloves on and found his severed dick. I picked it up and forced his mouth open. I shoved it in there and taped it shut. He was going to eat his own fucking dick, just like I'm sure he's made other people do. I sat against the wall watching the life drain from his eyes. Lastly, I went back up the stairs and grabbed some fuel from the garage. I slowly poured it all over his body, getting it in all of his wounds. I packed up what I had left into my backpack and put it on. You brought this on yourself. I hope you fucking understand that in your last minute of life. Worthless fucking scum. I spit on him and then led a fat trail of gas to the beginning of the staircase. I set it ablaze and watched as the flames engulfed him, swallowing him whole. He was going to be taken from hell on earth to actual hell. As he wailed and screamed, I ascended the steps. I called Anne and told her it was done, and that I was on my way, and then I closed the hatch, hopped the wall, and left. All evidence was cleaned up by a disposal team within the next hour. I kind of feel bad for leaving such a mess. Well, that's it for tonight, everyone. Some of you may think I'm a fucking psychopath who has real problems. Others may think my actions were justified. I think he had it coming. He deserved every last fucking second of that night. I may see him in hell one day. Who knows? I will have to pay for my sins one way or another. All I know is that karma's a bitch. I was just the person who happened to deliver that karma in this instance. This was the most brutal case, but it was my first. One more sick motherfucker is off the planet, and I say good riddance. Until next time, everyone. Until next time.